Arnold Schwarzenegger, a team of commandos, a jungle, and an alien hunter picking them off one by one. It's the ultimate 1980s action movie. But what if everything you thought you knew about Predator was wrong? What if the film everyone remembers as Arnold's ultimate action vehicle was actually designed to systematically dismantle everything Arnold Schwarzenegger represented? What if the movie wasn't celebrating 80s machismo, it was writing its obituary? Grab your thermal vision and your mud camouflage, because today we're breaking down what everyone misunderstood about Predator. The movie they sold us. The marketing told you exactly what to expect. The poster. Arnold, bare-chested, covered in mud, muscles gleaming, holding a massive weapon. The trailer had explosions, gunfire, wisecracks, and a barely glimpsed creature. And for about 30 minutes, that's exactly what you got. Dutch and his team storm a guerrilla camp with surgical precision. Bodies fly, buildings explode. Jesse Ventura carries a minigun like it's a toy. These aren't just soldiers, they're superheroes playing at war. It's peak 80s excess, and audiences ate it up. The film opened at number 1, grossing nearly $60 million domestically. Critics called it a testosterone-fueled thrill ride. It became another notch in Arnold's belt, sandwiched between Commando and The Running Man. Just another Arnold movie where Arnold wins. The formula worked, why question it? But something strange happened in the years that followed. Predator didn't fade like most action movies. It grew, it became studied, referenced, elevated. Directors like Robert Rodriguez and Shane Black, who was actually in the film, spoke about it with a reverence usually reserved for Hitchcock. They saw something deeper, something that went over everyone's head in 1987. Because Predator wasn't just another action movie. It was a trap. The context everyone forgot. To understand what Predator really is, you need to go back to 1986. Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't just a movie star, he represented something bigger than cinema. He was the Reagan-era ideal made flesh. Unstoppable, invincible. American power incarnate. In Commando, he defeated an entire army alone. In Raw Deal, he walked through bullets. In The Terminator, it took a hydraulic press to stop him. And it wasn't just Arnold. This was the era of Rambo, of Chuck Norris, of Stallone's Cobra. American masculinity had been reconstructed as something superhuman. The Vietnam hangover was over. These films told audiences that American strength could overcome anything. The body itself became a weapon, sculpted and oiled and displayed as proof of dominance. The Cold War provided the perfect backdrop for this mythology. Soviet threats justified the fantasy of the unstoppable American warrior. These films were more than just entertainment. They were propaganda wrapped in entertainment. They told a generation that individual strength and firepower could solve geopolitical problems. Complexity was for the weak. Real men acted. Directors John McTiernan and writer Jim Thomas understood this moment perfectly. McTiernan had just come off Nomads, a film about cultural displacement and terror. He wasn't interested in making another muscle movie. He wanted to subvert one. Thomas's original script for Predator was more straightforward, but McTiernan saw the potential for something else, a chance to take every action movie convention and turn it inside out. The studio gave them $20 million and cast the most indestructible action star in the world. They thought they were funding another Rambo. They even cast Carl Weathers specifically because of Rocky, and Bill Duke and Jesse Ventura as extensions of the tough guy archetype. They had no idea what McTiernan was actually making. The clues hiding in plain sight. Watch the film again, but this time, pay attention to what actually happens. Dutch and his team aren't just fighting the Predator. They're being systematically stripped of everything that makes them powerful. First, it's their weapons. That opening raid showcases their overwhelming firepower. Blaine's minigun tears through the jungle in an iconic scene. But when the Predator arrives, what happens? Mac empties thousands of rounds into the trees and hits nothing. The weapons that made them gods against humans are useless. The film literally shows you that firepower doesn't matter. Then it's their technology. They have radios, heat sensors, and military coordination. But they're all worthless, because the Predator has better tech. It's invisible. It sees their body heat. It mimics their voices. Every technological advantage they possess is matched and exceeded. There's a moment where they try to call for extraction and realize they're completely cut off. The infrastructure they relied on has vanished. Next, their tactics. These are elite soldiers using military strategy. They set ambushes, create crossfires, coordinate movements. It doesn't matter. The predator ignores their tactics because it's not playing by their rules. It's hunting them like animals. When they try to establish a perimeter, it attacks from above. When they set up fields of fire, it comes from angles they didn't anticipate. Military doctrine becomes a liability. Their teamwork fails next. The camaraderie that defined them in the opening act dissolves under pressure. They argue, they panic, they break formation. Mac becomes obsessed with revenge and goes rogue. The team fractures because the bonds that held them together were predicated on dominance and victory. When those are taken away, there's nothing left. Finally, their bodies. This is the crucial part. Look at what the predator kills first. Hawkins, the smallest and weakest, dies first. Standard horror movie logic. But then Blaine goes down. The biggest, loudest, most aggressive member of the team is killed in seconds. His body, his weapon, his swagger, none of it matters. One by one, the team dies. And here's what you probably didn't notice. They die in order of how much they represent traditional masculinity and military might. The horror movie. Hiding inside. Another thing most people miss entirely is that Predator stops being an action movie about 35 minutes in and becomes a slasher film. The structure is identical to Halloween or Friday the 13th. A group of people in an isolated location, an unstoppable killer picking them off one by one, victims trying to understand what's hunting them while their numbers dwindle. The final survivor forced to confront the killer alone. Predator is a horror movie wearing an action movie's costume. McTiernan has confirmed this in multiple interviews. He watched slasher films while preparing for Predator, studying how they built tension and isolated victims. The Predator itself is structured like a slasher villain. It's masked. You don't see its face until the end. It has superhuman abilities. It's motivated by something the victims can't understand. It stalks and toys with its prey. These aren't action movie characteristics. They're horror movie characteristics. Look at how the deaths are staged. They're not heroic last stands. They're ambushes and murders. Characters die suddenly, without warning, often without even seeing their killer. Billy makes his stand on a log bridge, knife drawn, ready for honorable combat. Cut to his scream. We don't even see his death. The movie denies him, and frankly, us, the action movie death he's trying to have. The film's sound design reinforces this shift. In the opening raid, the sound is all gunfire and explosions, action movie sounds. But once the Predator appears, the audio becomes oppressive. The jungle is too quiet, then punctured by alien clicking and mimicked voices. The soundtrack uses long, droning tones that create unease. This is horror movie audio, designed to make you anxious rather than excited. Even the creature's POV shots are borrowed directly from horror cinema. The shimmering thermal vision isn't just cool, it's dehumanizing. We see the world as the monster sees it. The soldiers aren't people anymore. They're heat signatures, targets, meat. It's the same technique used in horror films to make you understand the killer's perspective, to make murder feel inevitable. The film makes you complicit in the horror by making you anticipate the deaths. You start counting. 6 men, 5 men, 4. You know Dutch will survive because he's Arnold, but everyone else is marked. That's not action movie logic, that's body count logic. What the creators actually said. McTiernan wasn't subtle about his intentions, at least not when you go back and read interviews from the period. In a 1987 interview with Starlog magazine, he described the film as a story about the failure of technology against nature. But he went further than that. He talked about the Predator as the ultimate enemy for the ultimate warrior, one that makes all his strengths irrelevant. Shane Black, who played Hawkins and was on set during the entire production, has been even more explicit in retrospect. In a 2010 interview, he said, "The movie is about masculinity eating itself. It's about taking all these 80s action tropes and watching them fail. The Predator is what happens when you meet something that's everything you are, but better. The film's cinematographer, Donald McAlpine, talked about how McTiernan specifically wanted the jungle to feel claustrophobic and oppressive, the opposite of how action movies typically frame space. Action heroes dominate their environment. The jungle in Predator dominates the heroes. It swallows them. They're constantly shown as small, vulnerable, lost. McAlpine used low angles in the opening to make the team look powerful, then switched to high angles once the Predator arrives. The camera literally looks down on them. Even the structure reveals intent. The first act is a traditional action movie. The second act is a slasher film. The third act is a survival thriller where Arnold literally strips himself of everything and covers himself in mud. Alan Silvestri's score reinforces this progression. The opening music is triumphant, almost militaristic, but as the film continues, the music becomes increasingly percussive and tribal, stripping away the orchestral elements until it's just drums and tension. The score itself is shedding the action movie genre. The subtext: everyone missed. Here's what Predator is actually about: the end of the 80s action hero. The film is a deconstruction disguised as a celebration. It takes every element that made Arnold Schwarzenegger a star and proves those elements will get you killed. His muscles, weapons, and even his intimidating looks didn't faze the Predator one bit. Watch the final confrontation again. Dutch survives not because he's strong, but because he makes himself weak. He abandons his gear, abandons his guns, abandons the very thing that makes him an action hero. He becomes primitive. He sets traps. He uses the environment. He screams and bleeds and looks terrified. All things Arnold Schwarzenegger never did in his other films. And even then, he barely survives. He doesn't kill the Predator through strength or skill. He drops a log on it. The creature that bested the ultimate soldier is defeated by a counterweight trap that humans have been using for 10,000 years. Technology fails. Military might fails. Muscles fail. What saves Dutch is stripping away everything modern and returning to the absolute basics of survival. And what happens after Dutch survives? The Predator activates a self-destruct device and laughs at him. It laughs because, even in defeat, it's showing Dutch that he didn't really win. It chose to die rather than be captured. It had contingencies that Dutch didn't even know existed. There's also a critique of American intervention embedded in the film. Dutch's team is brought in under false pretenses by Dillon, a CIA operative. They think they're on a rescue mission, but they're actually doing the agency's dirty work. The guerrilla camp they destroy in the opening wasn't their real mission. It was a setup. This mirrors American foreign policy in Central America during the 80s, where covert operations were sold to the public as humanitarian missions. The Predator, in this reading, becomes the consequences of interventionism. You go into someone else's territory with superior firepower and no understanding of what you're really facing, and eventually, you meet something you can't control. The creature isn't just hunting them. It's there because they disturbed the natural order. They brought violence to the jungle, and the jungle responded with something worse. A slow push into a misty rainforest, vines hang, light dapples, and the jungle closes in around us as tension quietly builds. Once you see the pattern, you notice the small details that confirm McTiernan's intent. Watch what happens to Dillon, played by Carl Weathers. He's the CIA operative, the government man, the symbol of institutional power. When he finally faces the Predator directly, his arm is severed in one shot. His hand, the hand he used to manipulate Dutch to shake hands in that iconic arm wrestling pose, is cut off instantly. The system he represents is literally disarmed. Look at Billy's character arc. He's the tracker, the one most connected to nature and intuition. He senses the Predator before anyone else. He knows they're being hunted. But even his connection to the primal doesn't save him because he still tries to fight it on masculine terms. He strips to the waist, takes out his knife, and prepares for single combat. The film respects his courage, but shows you it's not enough. Intuition without adaptation is still failure. Consider Pancho, who survives longer than most. He's the team's scout, the quieter member, the one who doesn't posture as much. But he's still part of the military machine, still carrying the weapons, still following the tactics. The Predator wounds him first, almost as if testing whether he's worth killing. He's eventually spared only because Dutch draws the creature away. His survival is luck, not skill. There's also the matter of Anna, the guerrilla fighter they capture. She's the only woman in the film, the only non-soldier, and she survives. The Predator looks directly at her, scans her, and walks away. She's unarmed and not a threat. The creature's honor code, it only hunts armed prey, is actually a commentary on the masculine violence driving the rest of the film. She survives because she's not playing the game. Even the dialogue reinforces the theme. The team constantly makes jokes about their strength and prowess. "I ain't got time to bleed," Blaine says. Minutes later, he's dead. "Anytime," Max says when asked if he's ready. But he's not ready. None of them are. Their confidence is performance, and the Predator exposes it as hollow. Why we got it wrong. So why did audiences in 1987 miss all of this? Why did everyone see it as just another Arnold movie? First, the marketing buried it. Fox promoted it as Alien Meets Rambo, which told audiences exactly what to expect. Action movie with a creature. The posters and trailers emphasized Arnold's muscles and the gunfights. They downplayed the survival horror elements. The studio knew they had an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and that's what they sold. Second, genre expectations. When you sit down to watch an Arnold movie, you know what you're getting. You're primed for certain pleasures, the action, the physique, the victory. Even when the film subverts these expectations, your brain is conditioned to interpret what you're seeing through that lens. Dutch survives, Arnold is the last man standing. That feels like a win, even though the film spends its runtime showing you it's not. Third, cultural moment. In 1987, American audiences weren't ready to see their action heroes deconstructed. The country was still riding Reagan-era optimism. The idea that military might and masculine strength had limitations wasn't something people wanted to hear. It was much easier to see Predator as a celebration of survival than a critique of machismo. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, the film is entertaining enough on the surface level that you don't have to engage with the subtext. The creature design is incredible. The action sequences are visceral. The tension builds effectively. You can watch Predator as a straightforward thriller and have a great time. The film doesn't force its themes on you. It lets you choose what to see. And finally, context changed it. By the time people started recognizing what Predator was doing, it had already been franchised. There were sequels, comics, video games, toys. The Predator itself became a marketable brand. The creature that represented the death of 80s masculinity became an action figure. That commercial success obscured the original intent. Seeing it for the first time. Once you understand what Predator is actually doing, you can't watch it the same way again. Every scene takes on new meaning. The Predator's perspective shots aren't just atmospheric. They're literally showing you how it sees the team. As targets, as prey, as meat marked by heat signatures. The film is constantly showing you that these men who think they're hunters are actually being hunted from the very beginning. Mac's breakdown after Blaine dies isn't just grief, it's the masculine coping mechanism failing. He goes from cocky soldier to a man shaving with a knife and talking to himself. He empties his weapon in a desperate, pointless display. He's clinging to the performance of strength when strength has already proven insufficient. Even the mud scene, probably the most iconic image from the film, is submission. Dutch covered in mud isn't Arnold Schwarzenegger looking cool. It's a man reducing himself to the environment, camouflaging not to attack, but to hide. The hero becomes invisible by covering the very body that defines him as a hero. And that final sequence where Dutch Primal screams and beats his chest, it's not triumph, it's desperation. He's trying to draw out the Predator by presenting himself as a worthy opponent. He's literally advertising his vulnerability, hoping the creature's sense of honor will give him a chance. The strongest man in movies is forced to beg for a fair fight. The film ends with Dutch being rescued, sitting in a helicopter covered in blood and mud, staring at nothing. He doesn't smile. He doesn't make a joke. He looks traumatized. For the first time in an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, the hero looks broken. So, what did you think about this reveal? Let us know in the comments section. Also, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.